I'm Professor Indra Abeysekera. Let's look at how to design measurement of variables. When we conduct a research, we have to look at a problem statement and ask the question why we want to look at a research question, the motivation behind it, and come up with a research question that is relevant to the problem solving for the stakeholders, and then gain a general understanding by looking at the theory. And in the theory, we have to then look at the constructs, the relations of the constructs embedded in the theory. The constructs become the basis for us to develop hypotheses. So the constructs are presented in the hypothesis. It is the general understanding in relation to the research question that we state as the null hypothesis. But if there's a preferred understanding, we write it as an alternative hypothesis. Based on the hypothesis that is written, the statement, looking at the constructs embedded in the hypothesis, which are derived from the theory, we develop variables. Variables are representation of construct specific to the research question, which are observable through the senses, through our senses. But they have to be made measurable. So the observable variables, we identify an attribute that we can measure in each variable. It's that measuring that makes it scientific. Because of the measuring, we can test the hypothesis. So it's the measuring and the testing that makes the scientific endeavor, research endeavor, scientific. By doing that, we can test the hypothesis. So the problem statement, research question, theory, and hypothesis are conceptual. But once an attribute has been identified and we make it operational for measurement, it becomes in the real world. And those measurements are used to test the hypothesis, and that testing takes place in the real world. So looking at the problem statement, research question and theory, let's develop an hypothesis specific to the research question. We can state the use of emoticons has the most positive impact on the most recent generation and the least positive impact on the distant generation in the 80-year generation cycle on customer service. So our variables here are emoticons for customer satisfaction, representing the worldview, which is construct, and then the generations can be looked at as baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Y, and Gen Z. Now these are variables. We can observe this through our senses. But we haven't measured. To measure the generations and emoticons, we have to come up with an attribute. For emoticons, we can say to measure number of smile emoticons provided by a given generation. And for the generations, we can say number of customers in each generation. And we can look at whether there is a relationship. So the measurements attributes can be used to obtain numbers which can be tested as evidence to test the hypothesis in the real world. So based on the generation theory, there's not just one classification of generations. We can classify generations in different ways. Childhood, young adult, midlife, elderhood, baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, post-millennials. Another way is high awakening, unraveling crisis. Now, a given classification of generations we use based on the research question that best addresses the research question to solve that research problem or research question. Let's look at another example. In this example, the problem statement is staff engagement can have an impact on staff motivation and staff morale and staff attrition. So based on that problem statement, let's develop a research question. We can say, we can ask question, does staff engagement has negative impact on organizational commitment? We can then look at a theory such as Herzberg's motivation hygiene theory, which says that certain factors in the workplace that cause job satisfaction, while a separate set of factors cause dissatisfaction. So based on the theory, we identify constructs. One construct is job satisfaction. So based on our research question, we use attrition because we want to look at attrition. And for the motivators, we're going to look at engagement and compensation. So we have variables that we can look at: engagement and staff attrition, compensation are variables that we can look at specific to the research problem based on the hypothesis. Now we are going to measure attributes of these variables. We can measure the number of innovative ideas from staff, for example, as engagement, and for the attrition, number of quarterly resignation, and test whether there is a relationship so that we can test out the hypothesis 1, whether low staff engagement leads to staff attrition. The findings of this study, for example, there's a positive relationship when there's number of innovative ideas from staff are increasing, but the resignation are increasing, then there is a problem in relation to motivation of the staff. Then we have to look at the factors of motivators and see whether we can address this problem. On the other hand, if there's a negative relationship, the number of innovative ideas are increasing, but staff resignation is decreasing, then it is a favorable sign, and the motivators should be sustained. They are the impact from the findings of this study.